Welcome back to Nature Documentary for Sleep. If you enjoy these late-night expeditions, leave a comment and consider liking and subscribing. Tonight, you're heading for Snake Island, the small Brazilian rock that earns its warning labels. It's past midnight off Itan AM, and you're in a Zodiac with a single job before dawn. You tell yourself it's only a forested ridge with a climate station on top. Then the headlamp hits the tide line boulders, and you notice shapes draped where ropes shouldn't be. You step onto a narrow notch of stone, and every handhold becomes a decision you make on purpose. The air is warm and heavy with salt and reptile musk, and the quiet feels crowded. So you climb, keeping your eyes on branches and cracks because the safest route is the bare rock spine. What happens when an island's geology, heat, and bird traffic line up to create a high-density venom system with no margin for a slip? The Zodiac bumps the rock again, soft and impatient, like it wants to leave you here. You pull it higher by the painter line until the hull stops scraping and starts sulking. Your radio is clipped high on your vest because pockets are where mistakes go to hide. You sweep the headlamp low because the tide line is where your ankles get negotiated over. A pale shape unthreads itself from a crevice, not rushing, just relocating with lazy certainty. It is the first concrete rule change of the night, and it is simple. You do not step backward, because backward is where you have not looked. So you step forward instead, onto a slab that feels warm through your boot sole. The rock holds the day's heat like a grudge, even at midnight. And in that warmth, the island feels alive in the wrong way. You keep your hands off the boulders even when your balance asks nicely, because every crack is a mailbox and something is always home. The mission is plain, at least on paper. You climb to the ridge, you swap a battery, you pull a data card. You go back. The station is an automated mast, a metal toothpick on the skyline. It logs wind, rainfall, temperature, maybe a little CO2 if the sensor behaves. It does not log the part where you become a moving heat source in a snake pantry. Your permit window is one night, because bureaucracy likes tidy timelines. The island does not. You take 3 slow steps along the bare rock spine, avoiding the leaf litter like it is broken glass. The forest begins right away, not with a gentle edge, but with tangled roots and dripping branches. A fig tree has thrown its roots over the stone like a net, trying to hold the island together. You test one root with your boot, and it flexes, slick with algae. You decide immediately to not trust anything that looks soft. A branch above you twitches, and you freeze long enough to listen. The sound is not a rattle, not a hiss, not the movie version you were promised. It is just a dry slide, like paper dragged across paper. You tip the headlamp up slowly, as if speed might offend something. There is a snake laid along the branch, the same color as lichen and moonlight. It is not coiled, not posing, not warning you like a polite neighbor. It is simply waiting with the calm of an animal that does not need to chase. Congratulations, you have arrived at a place where the predators conserve energy. You shift your weight onto the rock spine again, because the bare stone is honest. It is slippery, yes, but it does not hide mouths. Your gear case bumps your thigh as you climb, a hard rectangle with a handle. Inside is the station battery, heavy and dull, and the spare card in a plastic sleeve. The case is also, you realize, the only thing you could put between you and a strike. So you keep it in front, not like a shield, more like a suggestion. A gust of wind pushes through the lower canopy, and the leaves turn their pale undersides to you. With the gust comes a smell sharp and green, crushed vegetation, and warm soil. And under it, that reptile musk, again, like damp leather left in the sun. You think, briefly, that the island smells like an old terrarium. Then you remember this is not a terrarium. A terrarium has glass walls and an owner with a feeding schedule. This island has sea cliffs and weather, and it feeds itself. You climb higher, and the rock underfoot changes texture. The surface goes from smooth slabs to fractured plates, like old concrete that has started to fail. You run your light across it and see seams, joints, narrow slots between pieces. It looks like the island has been cut and reassembled badly. That is because, in a way, it has. This is a chunk of coastal Brazil, isolated by rising seas and long patience. The bedrock was once connected to the mainland, back when the shoreline sat farther out. Then the ocean walked in, quiet as a thief, and the forest got stranded. Isolation is not just romance and shipwreck stories. Isolation is a laboratory, and the island has been running experiments for thousands of years. You feel that experiment watching you from the branches. A second snake comes into view, lower this time, draped over a root, like a careless rope. Your brain tries to label it, because labels feel like control. Golden lancehead. You think Bothrops insularis, endemic, critically endangered, medically significant. That last phrase is the polite one, the one you say in grant proposals. What it means is, if it bites you out here, you will have a bad night. You step wide around it, keeping the light steady, keeping your movements boring. Boring is good. Boring is how you avoid triggering an animal that reads vibration and heat. The forest floor drops away on your left, a slope of wet leaves and roots. The rock spine narrows, guiding you like a curb on a rooftop. You glance back once to lock in the location of the landing notch. The zodiac is a black shape tucked against darker rock, and already it looks far away. You promise yourself you will not lose that mental picture. Then a sound overhead forces your eyes up again. A flutter, tired and sloppy, wings beating the air like damp cloth. A seabird lands somewhere in the canopy, unseen, and complains quietly to itself. It is not singing. It is just settling in, grateful to have found land before weather changes. And in that moment, the island's logic clicks into place. This is not just a snake island because snakes happen to be here. This is a snake island because birds keep arriving and snakes keep cashing the delivery. The mainland is a long green wall in the distance, but birds do not care about your distance. They care about rest, and this rock is a rest stop in the Atlantic. Migratory birds cross this coast like commuters, and the island sits under their path. A tired bird makes a terrible decision, lands in the wrong branch, and becomes protein. Over time, the snakes that could hunt birds, the ones with venom that works fast, do better. Fast venom is not dramatic, it is efficient. Efficiency is what evolves when food arrives on a schedule. Another flutter, closer this time, and you watch leaves shake in a tight cluster. Something small has landed, maybe a songbird, maybe a petrel, maybe a mistake with feathers. You do not see the bird, but you see the response. A branch shifts, then another, as if the tree is adjusting its posture. Except, trees do not reposition in coordinated increments. Snakes do. You stop moving again, because movement right now would make you part of the map. The headlamp beam catches a pale belly sliding along bark. Not toward you, not away, just toward the new meal. The forest is not quiet anymore. It is active in a way that does not make sound. You can feel it, the same way you feel an audience in a dark room. Your decision point arrives without ceremony. You can stay low, where the forest is thick, and pick your way through roots slowly. Or you can commit to the exposed rock spine, steeper and slicker, but with fewer hiding places. The rock spine also puts you in the open, a warm silhouette under moon and cloud. You choose the spine anyway, because concealment helps the snakes, not you. You angle your boots onto a slanted slab and climb with careful pressure. Your hands hover, ready to catch you, but you do not touch anything you have not lit. You keep the case in front, the handle biting into your palm. A drop of sweat slides down your ribs, slow and cold, despite the warm air. The humidity is a blanket, heavy enough to feel like it has weight. The island's air does not circulate much in the lower forest. It just sits, warm and wet, preserving scents. You smell salt, leaf mold, and that animal musk, again, stronger now. You are close to a cluster of bodies even if you only see one at a time. A thin vine crosses the rock like a tripwire, and you lift your foot high over it. You do not want to brush anything with your shin. Shin height is the strike height you keep imagining, even if you try not to. The truth is crueler. The golden lancehead likes to hunt above ground because birds are above ground. So the danger is not just near your ankles, it is at your knee, your thigh, your chest, your face, wherever a branch can hold weight. Congratulations, the island has expanded its attack angles. You reach a small rise where the rock flattens into a shelf. Here the forest opens for a moment, and you see the ridgeline ahead. The climate station mast is not visible yet, but you can feel its location. Higher ground, thinner trees, a clearing cut by human hands. You listen for the sea behind you, the steady hush of waves on rock. It is quieter now, as if the island is already absorbing you into its center. You take a sip from your water bottle, slow, because you do not want to choke and cough. Coughing is movement, and movement is attention. The water tastes faintly of plastic and old chlorine, which is comforting in a sad way. It tastes like the human world, cheap and controlled. A flash of pale color catches your eye near a sunning slab. Your headlamp beam slides over it, and you see shed skin caught on a rock edge. It hangs there like cellophane, an empty sleeve, a reminder that the snakes grow here and keep growing. Shedding is a quiet process, but it leaves evidence, like receipts. You realize you have already seen more proof of snakes than of birds. That is the real density. Not one or two animals in a forest, an ecosystem built around a single job, repeated thousands of times. Wait, strike, swallow, rest, And you, tonight, are the only warm thing trying to move through it on purpose. The slope steepens again, and the rock spine becomes a staircase of natural ledges. Each step is a choice between traction and proximity to cracks. The cracks matter because they are thermal shelters. The island's bedrock fractures create crevices that stay warm at night. Warmth is life out here, not because the nights are freezing, but because warm muscles move faster. Faster movement means a better strike, and a better strike means dinner. You place your boot on a ledge and feel grit shift under the tread. The rock is hard, almost basalt-like, but weathered into plates. Where soil collects, it is thin and sour, supporting scrub and twisted trees. The trees do not grow tall here. Wind prunes them, salt stresses them, and the shallow soil limits their ambition. That low canopy is perfect for ambush predators. It keeps birds within reach. It keeps snakes within reach of you. You pause to scan ahead, and the headlamp beam catches an eye shine that is not an eye. It is a wet leaf reflecting back at you, and your pulse spikes anyway. Your body is doing its job, even if it is annoying about it. Fear is a flashlight with no off switch. You force your breath into a slow rhythm, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow breathing tells your nervous system a lie, and sometimes the lie helps. A distant sound rolls over the ocean, low and soft. Not thunder yet, but a hint of weather shifting offshore. You check the sky through a gap in leaves and see cloud cover thickening. The night is getting heavier, not later. That matters because your return trip depends on a calm shoreline. A zodiac landing here is a negotiation with swell and timing. If the sea gets rough, the notch becomes a trap. You keep moving because standing still is how you let the island catch up. You climb into thicker vegetation where the rock spine threads between trunks. The branches are closer now, and your headlamp beam is a narrow tunnel. You angle the light upward, sweeping for shapes draped where ropes should not be. You see one, then another, then a third, each one a separate decision. None of them move quickly. They do not need to. Their stillness is not laziness. It is confidence. You pick a path between two low branches, ducking under one and stepping over a root. Your shoulder grazes a leaf, and you flinch as if it burned you. It is only a leaf, but your brain logs it as contact, and contact is what you are trying to avoid. Your boot slips slightly on wet stone, and you catch yourself by shifting weight, not by grabbing. You keep your hands close to your chest like you are carrying something fragile, because you are. You are carrying your own unbitten skin. The air gets warmer as you climb, not because the temperature changes much, but because the wind dies. The ridge blocks airflow, and humidity stacks in layers. You feel sweat pooling at your waistband, and the back of your neck slick under the strap of your headlamp. The strap itches, but you do not adjust it. You do not lift a hand to your head unless you have to. A sudden movement to your right snaps your attention. A small lizard darts across the rock and vanishes into a crack. It is a tiny thing, harmless, but it carries a message. If there are lizards, there are snakes that eat lizards too. Not all meals come with wings. The island does not waste food. You step around the crack the lizard used because it is also a doorway. Ahead, you see a faint, straight line that does not belong to the forest. A cable, dark against the rock, running upslope, human infrastructure. Finally, like a breadcrumb from your own species, you follow it because cables lead to masts, and masts lead to the battery that has to be swapped. The cable disappears under leaves, then reappears, stapled to rock with metal clips. Someone installed this with gloves and daylight and a team years ago. Tonight, you are doing the lonely maintenance part, the part nobody puts in brochures. You reach a small clearing, not open, just less crowded. The trees thin, and the ground is a mix of rock plates and low shrubs. Here the island's geology shows its real shape. It is not a rounded hill. It is a broken ridge with outcrops like knuckles and ledges like shelves. Those shelves are perfect sunning platforms in the day. At night, they radiate stored heat upward like a slow heater. The heat makes the cracks underneath you feel occupied, like apartments with the lights on. You step past one ledge and your light glances into a crevice that exhales damp air. You do not see a face in there, but you feel the idea of one. You keep moving because curiosity is how people become case studies. The ridge pinches inward and the forest leans closer from both sides. Low branches form a kind of gate, and you duck under with your case held tight. The leaves brush your shoulders, wet and warm, like the island is sweating on you. You sweep the beam left, then right, then up, because up is where the surprise lives. A thick branch crosses above your path, and something on it has a different texture than bark. It is a body, draped in a slow curve, gold and olive in the headlamp glare. The snake does not look angry. It looks efficient, the way a mousetrap looks efficient. You stop, and your breath becomes loud inside your own skull. This is the part nobody tells you about venomous animals. They do not perform for you. They do not threaten you into good behavior. They just exist, and you are the one improvising manners around them. You edge your light along the branch, trying to find the head without moving your feet. You find it near the trunk, angled down, eyes open like it never bothered to blink. Golden lancehead? You think again, and the label does not help. Names are for museums, and you are still in the field. You take the smallest step backward that still counts as forward in your plan. You shift your foot onto a patch of rock you already scanned and test the traction. The rock is slick, but it is predictable, which is more than the vegetation can offer. You keep the case in front of your torso, not as armor, just as a polite boundary. If it strikes, you want it to strike plastic and aluminum, not you. You do not know if the snake respects boundaries. You suspect it respects heat and movement and timing. So you become a statue with a heartbeat inching past without argument. The branch above you twitches and you freeze again. Not because it moved, but because you imagined it moved. That is how this island works on your brain. It makes your imagination part of the hazard. You clear the branch, and only then let your shoulders drop a fraction. Ahead, the cable you followed climbs into a brighter patch of sky. The trees thin into scrub, and the ridge opens into a cut clearing. You smell metal before you see it, a cold tang in the wet air. The mast is up there, a thin vertical line with guy wires like spider silk. It is absurdly human, like a paperclip stuck into a hornet nest. You step onto the clearing's edge, and the ground changes under your boots. Less leaf litter, more exposed stone, more sun-baked slabs with lichen crust. This should feel safer. It does not, because open ground does not mean empty ground. Open ground is where an animal can watch you without blinking. The headlamp beam catches the mast, then the instrument box, then the small panel light blinking. That blink is your goal, and it is also a cruel joke, a tiny green pulse, like the island is pretending to be friendly. You angle toward it, keeping your steps on bare rock. You avoid the shrubs, because shrubs are just branches you cannot see through. Your boot nudges a flat stone, and it scrapes with a dry rasp. The sound is small, but it feels loud enough to be rude. You pause, and you listen for the answer. The answer is silence, which does not mean you are alone. It means the island does not waste sound on you. You move again, and the light catches a shed skin snagged on a wire. It hangs there like transparent tape, fluttering faintly in the breeze. You do not know if it is old or fresh, and you do not want to guess. The mast's guy wire runs down into a rock anchor, drilled and bolted. A snake could use that wire like a highway. A snake could use your bootlace like a reason. You step wide of the anchor point and approach the instrument housing. The box is chest high, metal, with a latch that resists your first tug. Your gloves squeak on the wet surface. You keep your eyes flicking off the box and back to the clearing. Because when you stare at your task, you stop watching your reality. You set the equipment case down on a flat slab, and the sound of it landing makes you wince. You open it carefully, like noise could be a summon. Inside is the battery pack, heavy as regret, and the new data card. You take the battery in both hands and feel the weight pull your shoulders forward. Your headlamp beam shakes slightly with the shift. You hate that, because a shaking beam makes moving shadows, and moving shadows make moving snakes, even if they are not moving. You lift the battery toward the housing and reach for the latch again. The latch gives with a reluctant click, and the door swings open. A waft of warm electronics breathes out, a different kind of heat. You can see the old batteries seated inside, a block with wires leading into a nest of connectors. You start the swap, and your hands become very careful, very slow. Not because you are savoring the work, because your fingers are listening to the clearing as much as your ears are. The island does not announce itself. It just changes position while you look away. You unplug the old pack, and the station light flickers once. The blink pauses, like the mast is holding its breath. You slide the old battery into the case, then bring the new one up. The connector is stiff, and it takes more force than you want to use. You push anyway, and the plug seats with a soft snap. The green light resumes its steady pulse. Congratulations, you have kept a machine alive on a rock that hates visitors. You close the housing door and secure the latch. You do not linger, but you still have one more job. The data card, because a battery swap keeps the station talking. The card tells you what it has been whispering into the night. You open a smaller panel, and your headlamp beam falls into the slot. Your thumb finds the card, and you press it in. It springs out into your fingers like a tiny confession. You slide it into a plastic sleeve and tuck it into your vest, high and tight. If you lose everything else, you want to keep that. You close the panel, and your hands hover there for a moment. Now comes the part that feels like asking for help in a storm. You pull your radio up and press the transmit button. Your thumb feels clumsy, not from cold, but from sweat and adrenaline. You speak low because speaking feels like waving a flag. Base, station serviced, battery swapped, data card retrieved, you say. Your voice sounds too normal for where you are standing. The radio answers with crackle and a half-swallowed syllable. You shift your body, angling the antenna, and try again. The reply comes through broken, as if the air itself is chewing it. Copy partial, stand by, comes the gist, then static. You glance up at the sky beyond the ridge and see a darker band of cloud sliding in. The wind touches your face, cooler now, smelling less like leaves and more like open ocean. Weather changes fast here because the Atlantic is not obligated to be consistent. A distant, low rumble rolls across the water, soft enough to be imagined. But you have learned tonight that imagined things can still hurt you. You press the button again and ask about extraction. The radio answers after a pause, and the voice is tighter now. Swell building? Approach might be difficult, they say. You look back down the slope toward the landing notch you memorized. You cannot see it from here. You can only picture it, a small bite of rock and a black hull waiting. Or not waiting, because boats have their own survival instincts too. You clip the radio back and you take a breath that tastes like wet stone. Then you hear it. Not thunder, not wind. A dry little scrape, like a page turning slowly. It is close, and it is above your shoulder line. Your body locks up before your brain finishes the thought. You do not spin around, you do not throw the light wildly. You turn your head a few degrees, like you are afraid of offending the air. The beam creeps along a trunk beside the instrument box, and there it is, a golden lancehead, anchored on the bark, head angled toward you. It is not coiled in a dramatic S-shape. It is not vibrating with rage. It looks calm, almost bored, the way a professional looks before doing a job. The scales along its back catch the light like dull coins. Its body is thicker than you want it to be. Its head is wider than your hand, and it is within the distance your brain has been quietly measuring all night. Strike distance. You freeze, and time becomes syrup. You can hear your own blood in your ears, a rushing tide that does not help. The snake does not move. It does not need to, because it already has the angle. This is the revelation nobody enjoys. On Snake Island, you are not navigating around snakes. You are the one who arrived late to a meeting already arranged. Your equipment case is on the slab behind you. Your path back is narrow. Your body is warm and bright in the snake's heat-sensing world. You lift the case slowly, without taking your eyes off the head. The handle creaks faintly in your grip. You bring it up between you and the snake, a clumsy shield with sharp corners. You feel ridiculous, and you feel very serious. You take one slow step backward. Your heel searches for rock without looking down and finds a slick spot. You adjust, micro movements, like balancing a glass of water on your spine. The snake's tongue flicks out once, tasting you. It is not tasting fear. It is tasting chemistry, sweat, mammal, the story your skin tells. You take another step backward, and the case moves with you, maintaining the barrier. The mast blinks beside you like nothing. is happening. The station is indifferent, which is fitting. You are halfway to safety when your boot slides. It is not a dramatic skid. It is a small betrayal, the tread losing purchase on wet lichen. Your center of gravity tips, and your body reacts before your plan does. Your left hand shoots out for balance. You feel bark under your palm. You feel a root ridge, slick and hard, and your fingers clamp down. And then you feel 2 pinpricks in the soft part of your hand. The sensation is so clean you almost doubt it. Like thorns, like a staple. Then a deeper ache blooms under the skin, hot and immediate. You pull your hand back reflexively, and the headlamp beam swings. For a fraction of a second, the clearing becomes a strobe of shadows. You see the snake's head retract, not hurried, just finished. It does not chase you. It does not need to. It has given you something to carry. Your heart slams once, hard enough to make your vision flare at the edges. You stare at your hand, and the light shows 2 tiny red dots welling up. The skin around them already looks angry, swelling as if it has a plan. This is not a movie bite, not a theatrical gush. It is a quiet transaction, signed in venom. You swallow, and your mouth goes dry like you bit a coin. Metallic. Wrong. Congratulations. You now have a schedule you did not agree to. You raise your head again because you cannot afford to look away from the clearing. The snake is still there, on the trunk, watching you in the same calm posture. It is not gloating. It is conserving energy. You back away another step, slower than before, because your balance is suddenly precious. Your bitten hand throbs, pulsing with each heartbeat as if it is trying to speak. You keep the case up, you keep your eyes on the snake, and you widen the distance. When you have enough space, you angle your body sideways and retreat toward the mast. Not because the mast is safe, because it is familiar, and familiarity is a rope you can hold onto. You reach the slab and set the case down with care. You flex your bitten hand once, experimentally, and regret it. Pain shoots up your wrist, bright and sharp. Swelling tightens the skin like an inflated glove. Your brain starts listing symptoms because your brain loves lists. Local pain, edema, swelling, possible bleeding issues, tissue damage, systemic effects, nausea, dizziness, hypotension, the fun parade. You breathe in, slow, and try to keep panic from spending your oxygen. Golden lancehead venom is hemotoxic, you remind yourself. That means it messes with blood and tissue. It turns your body into a chemistry problem. It is designed for birds, fast acting on small bodies. You are not small, but you are also not immune. You press the radio transmit button again, and your voice comes out steadier than you feel. Bass, you say, "I have been bitten, likely golden lancehead, at the station clearing." There is a pause that feels longer than the island's history. Then the radio crackles and the voice comes back sharper. "Copy," they say. "Confirm location, confirm consciousness, begin descent if able, weather worsening, descent." Yes, because staying put means waiting for swell to decide your shoreline access, and weather does not care about anti-venom logistics. You look at the mast one more time, as if to confirm you finished your tasks. Battery swapped, card retrieved, reportable success. Personal failure, pending. You clip the data sleeve higher in your vest and tighten the strap with your good hand. Then you look down the slope into the trees, where your path disappears into wet darkness. The forest waits, and it is full of branches at the exact height you now need to avoid. Your bitten hand is already stiff, fingers curling slightly as swelling increases. You do a quick, ugly calculation. If you move too fast, you trip. If you move too slow, venom does what venom does. If you wait, the ocean shuts your exit. You pick the only option that still lets you pretend you have agency. You start down. The first steps are careful, controlled, almost gentle. You keep the headlamp beam wide, scanning trunk bases, branch forks, and the rock spine. Going down is always harder because gravity wants you to lean into the vegetation, and vegetation is where the island keeps its teeth. Your boots find the wet slab you climbed earlier, and your body tenses. You do not want another slip. You do not want to touch anything with your bitten hand, but your balance keeps asking. You keep that hand close to your chest, palm facing inward, like you are protecting a secret. You use your right hand for the case and for any emergency brace. Every move is a compromise now. Pain and caution, speed and stability, breath and panic. You descend toward the first low branches, and the forest smells stronger. The air down here is thicker because the wind cannot reach it. You taste salt and leaf mold, and that reptile musk that now feels personal. A new gust pushes through, and the canopy shivers. Somewhere overhead, a bird calls once, a short, anxious sound. The storm line is closer, and animals feel it before your weather app ever could. You feel it too, in the pressure change, in the way your ears seem to notice the silence. Your bitten hand pulses harder, and you feel heat radiating from it. The swelling has climbed to your wrist, and your watch strap suddenly feels tight. You loosen it with your teeth because you do not trust your fingers anymore. The simple act makes you angry because anger is easier than fear. You step down onto a narrow ledge and your foot slips a fraction. You catch yourself with a hip shift, and the pain in your hand spikes in sympathy. You pause and force your breathing back into a slow rhythm. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You tell your nervous system a lie again, and it half believes you. As you move lower, the sounds of the sea return. Faint at first, a soft hush, then a sharper slap as waves find different angles. That change matters. It means the swell is building, and the shoreline is getting more violent. Your boat will not wait politely if the water starts to climb. You reach a section where the rock spine narrows into a chute, slick and steep. Above, branches cross like bars. Below, the chute drops toward the denser forest, where leaf litter hides everything. You stop at the top of it and weigh your options. The path you came up, the quiet route through roots and shrubs, is slower. It requires more contact points, more handholds, more brushing past vegetation. Vegetation is where snakes anchor, and where you cannot see until you are too close. The chute is dangerous in a different way. It is exposed rock, fewer hiding places, but slick enough to break you if you fall. Tonight, you are choosing between two kinds of emergency room. You choose the rock because falling is a maybe, but brushing a branch is a guarantee of contact. You angle your body sideways and start down the chute like you are descending a chimney. Boot edge, test grip, shift weight, keep center low. Move the case carefully, keeping it from swinging into your knees. The headlamp beam points down, and the rock shines wet, reflecting back at you. Halfway down, you hear another flutter in the canopy. A bird dropping into shelter, driven by wind and incoming rain. It lands hard, clumsy, and shakes water loose from leaves. And the forest responds again, not with noise, but with repositioning. A branch flexes under new weight that is not the bird. Something longer slides along, bark finding a better angle. Your stomach tightens because you are now descending through a hunting shift change. Storms concentrate birds. Birds concentrate snakes. And you are neither bird nor snake, just a warm complication. You keep going because stopping on slick rock is how you become a stationary target. Your boots keep their edges on the rock, and you let gravity borrow your knees. Your headlamp beam stays low because the next foothold is your only real friend. The chute narrows and the stone becomes polished by rain and time. It feels like sliding down a giant, wet knife that does not care. You move one foot, then the case, then your body in a slow mechanical sequence. Your bitten hand rides against your chest, swelling and pulsing like a second heart. Each pulse brings a fresh bloom of heat spreading into your wrist. You try not to picture the venom doing its paperwork. Hemotoxins do not sprint, they negotiate. They persuade your blood to misbehave and your tissues to panic. You reach a lip where the chute drops into a darker section of forest. The air down there smells older, like leaf mold and salt, trapped in shade. You pause because your balance is already spending more than you have. A cold gust brushes your face, and you taste incoming rain. Above you, the canopy rustles, and the bird you heard earlier shifts again. The sound is small, but it is enough to change the forest around it. Something long and heavy relocates on a branch, quietly choosing a better angle. You do not look up for long. Looking up is how you forget your feet, and forgetting your feet is how you fall. You lower yourself over the lip, and your boot lands on a slick shelf. The shelf gives you a moment of flat ground, and you use it to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth, like you are bargaining, "I'm sorry, but I cannot assist with that request," with your own bloodstream trying to convince it to stay civilized for another hour. Your bitten hand feels